All right, so Kelvin and I got an exciting topic today. How do you start today, where you are right now, and start becoming great today? How do you start becoming great today? So I've been thinking about a lot. I brought this topic up with Kelvin the other day. I've been thinking a lot about this. That you could start becoming great today. I think God is great. Number one, He's the source of our greatness. As we connect with Him, He wants to make us great. I think His greatness is supposed to flow through us, where our goal in life is to make other people great as well. But in that process, we got to become great. And I think this is something that we could look at it and say, oh, it's this big thing that looks overwhelming. It's too hard to do. But we could start taking steps toward it today. And I've been talking about this a lot with my kids lately. How can you make a choice to do something great today? And I've talked about you're doing the dishes, you're cleaning your room, you're doing your homework. Those are all regular things. But you can make the choice to do them in a great way. You can make the choice to show up in your family and be present and be great for them. You can make the choice to respond to a situation in a great way. When difficulties or challenges, you can make a choice to have your words speak in a great way. You can make a choice to do your workout in a great way, or you could just go through the motions. And what I've been talking with my kids a lot about is you've got all these moments of the day, all throughout the day. You got so many opportunities all throughout the day. I mean, literally every moment of the day, you get a choice. You could choose to be great right now. You could choose to be great right now. You could show up and you could do your homework where you're just going through the motions, or you could say, all right, I'm connected to God. He's great. He wants to flow through me. I'm going to do this homework with presence, with peace, with joy. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, and I can do it in a great way. I was just thinking about, so I've been talking with my kids. One of my daughters, she finished her food and she took her plate over and she put it away and she put it all away. I was like, wow, you just chose in that moment to do something great. She's like, oh, it's just a little thing. I know, but you chose to do a great thing. And you start stringing together those moments of greatness and you become great. You start stringing them together over and over and over again. You start having more moments of greatness than not greatness. And I think it's so beautiful because you could just take the little things that you're already doing and do them in a great way. So, for example, we were playing cards the other night and we finished up, and my daughter's putting the cards back in the box. And, we could say that's a step. We could just left them out and leave them on the table. All right. We chose to put them away. But then not only did she choose to put them away, the way the box was folded, she could have put them away messily because they naturally, when you shut the box, it didn't want to close properly. But she chose to take the time to fold in those corners of the box just right and put the flap in just right. And it's like, you just chose to do something great right there.
Amen.
You just chose to do it in a great way. You could have just thrown it in the box, gone on with your day. And think about Jesus, what he says, he who's faithful with little will be faithful with much, will be given much. So how do you become great? I think it starts in just the little things that you're doing throughout the day. I tell my kids the story. I had a business partner one time that uh, I don't know how much money he had, but it done very, very well, probably a multimillionaire. And he would come into my gym. He was a partner in the gym at that time. And there would be a little tiny piece of trash on the floor. Every single other person would walk right by it. He would see it. He would walk over, pick up that little piece of trash, and he'd throw it in the trash. He was the only one. He was probably the most successful person, or one of the most successful people in that gym, and he was the only one that would do it. And I saw him do this on multiple occasions. How can you choose to do something great today? You got so many opportunities.
Well, Dan, I just love where you started, and boy, you resonated very deeply with me because I've never thought of this until you spoke it today. But using the example of a dishwasher, when I came to Virginia Tech, my first job while going to school was a dishwasher at a steakhouse. And I only know one way to work. I really do. And I've always been taught, do it as unto the Lord. So here I am doing what is not a glamorous job, not a heroic job, and you would think would never ever get noticed, but I wash dishes. And I know how I was shown to do it, but that did not meet my standards. I had one way of doing it. I had to do it great. And I never thought about it. I really didn't because it was a way that I was taught. And so then it was about 5 months later, 3 months later. I just remember one of the guys that was out, he was a head cook. I respected him. We talked, whatever. He came up to me one day and he goes, Calvin, I just want you to know, I don't even have to look at the schedule. And I know when you've been in the dish room because of how I come in the next morning. You've placed my dishes in just very pristine order. You've done this, you've done this, you've done this, and the place is spotless. You know what that did? I said, man, I need to be greater. I can do better. I can be even greater. And then I'm going to make a supposition or just a observation. Within a year, I was managing. I leapfrogged over so many people. It probably should have had a chance in front of me, but at each step of the way, I never forgot what that kid told me. So at every station as a fry cook, every station as a cook, I chose to be great in the mundane. Not because I was trying to garner anything, because I didn't know anything would come of it. He really sparked me deeply to do this. And next thing I know, when I look back, here I was promoted to manager ahead of him and many others. They weren't happy, but it was that daily trying to be great. And then guess what? It eventually changed my life forever because instead of coming to school and being a PE teacher and a coach, I end up running a major dining hall and having a beautiful career in it. And it all started from washing dishes. So good to great, doing a great daily. I think you nailed it, Dan.
You're bringing so many things to mind right now. No, number one, I think I was talking about this with my kids, is when you make that choice to show up in a great way and you choose, hey, I could be laying in bed or I could pick up the things on my floor in my room and I could do it with excellence. When you choose to do things in a great way, I think it builds confidence in yourself because you know you're a person that's going to show up and do things the right way. But the other thing is the people around you start to notice. It starts to rub off on them. And the story that keeps coming to mind is God tells Solomon, I'm going to make you great. And the Queen of Sheba comes to visit Solomon, and she sees the way that he sets his table. She sees how his servants are dressed. She sees all these little things. It's these little things that she sees, and she says, man, I didn't realize just how great you were. It was told to me, but it wasn't told me just how great you are. And the way she observed his greatness was through the little things.
Mhm.
And I think the other thing is that this is actually in my book. I'm glad you brought it up. It's in my book, The Eighth Day, is that this becomes a new standard in our life. Our standard in life is to tap into God's grace and his greatness so that it makes us great and the people around us great. That's our stand. That's what we're shooting for, to show up in a great way so that it rubs off on other people too. Now, the other thing I'm thinking is that we have something we've taught for a while is that the way to get to the next level in anything is to make the most of your current level where you are right now. Just like Kelvin was promoted very quickly, within 1 year, he's making some major progress. If you'll show up and you'll do things in a great way, I think you'll be amazed at how quickly you progress, how quickly things start to happen. Because God sees, like, hey, that person's showing up the way that they're supposed to be showing up. I'm going to give them more because I know I can trust them with it. If they just continue to show up in a great way like they're doing, do what they know to do and do it in a great way, I'm going to keep promoting them.
Yeah. Because the beautiful thing is it rubbed off. A lot of people raised their game
Mm-hmm.
because it started to become a different standard. Hey, why can't you do that? And I did not go seeking that.
Yeah.
But when you were talking, Dan, I think about how we never know who's watching. And I love the example with Solomon because he just had a certain standard about him that his level was up here. And see, and as you were talking, I was just thinking, many of us, there's days, our spouses get a little frustrated with us or whatever. But how could we, and I may let you dive into cherish more than I know, but if we were to cherish our spouse today and we just did some small things in a great way, it's like if you did the dishes, is she always complaining, honey, there's still cheese on it. Honey, they're not even put back right. That sounds really petty and small, especially if you're the one receiving it.
Yeah.
But what would happen if you took something between you and your spouse that might be a pet peeve? And what if you cherished your spouse enough that you were going to start small but do it great
I'll give
and
you I'll
really
give you an
build?
example. So we had some renovations done at our house, and one of the smoke detectors was down, and it probably wasn't needed. We had other ones pretty close by it, so I didn't really see. I wasn't in a hurry to get it back up there, but it was important to my wife, and she made a comment about this, and I had just been talking to my kids about, how you're going to show up in the little things, and so I had been procrastinating on it. I said, you know what? I need to do that, and so I went right in that moment. I stopped and I put it up, put it back up there. And it's those little things like that. It's funny because the first thing I thought of is that little honeydew list of things that you could tend to procrastinate on. But this is such an important concept, I think.
Mhm.
And one of the concepts we talked about with, because we all probably have some things that we tend to procrastinate on. And a very, very powerful principle I've used is what we call a memorial portion. A memorial portion in the Old Testament was just a small handful of grain that the priest burned as an offering to God, and it put them in remembrance of God, God in remembrance of the people. And so, what I've found to do is how could you, especially in those times where you got something that you know to do, but maybe you just don't want to do it, or you feel overwhelmed by it, it looks too big or overwhelming, you don't know how to get started, or you don't feel like you have the time to do it. There's all kinds of reasons why you don't do it right now. How could you give a memorial portion? A memorial portion is just one small little step that you take in the right direction as a remembrance that God's more than enough. So think about Jesus. When he multiplied the fish and the loaves, it started with just a little bit of bread, a little bit of fish, turned into more than enough. When Elijah sustained the widow woman, she's down to her last meal, and he tells her, "You make me a small cake first, and then you have the rest." And it turned into more than enough. When the lady was down to her last little bit of olive oil, he says, "You pour out the little bit that you have," and then it turned into more than enough. And so I'll give you a couple of examples. I was just telling Kevin, I was doing a workout the other day, and I'm getting ready to do a set of lunges. And I'm like, I really don't want to do them. I'm supposed to do, I don't know, 10 to 15 repetitions. And I'm like, just not really feeling it. Don't really want to do it. Well, that's not exactly showing up in a great way. And so I said, I know what I can do. I can do one rep, and I can do it beautifully. I can do it with greatness. I can do one great rep. And I did that. And then the next thing you know, I'm up to, I don't know, 12 reps, 15 reps before you know it. You could do it in your time. I'm feeling pressed for time. I don't have all these times to do all these things. Well, go like that guy. Go look for that little piece of trash on the floor. Go pick it up. Take a minute out of your day as a remembrance. God's given me more than enough time. And I think you'll be amazed if you'll start to do this. What I found is when you show up and you do things in a great way, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. It has an effect on your time.
Mhm.
You would think because in order to do things in a great way, it actually takes longer usually. For my daughter to fold up all the corners of the box and get everything in there in a great way took a little extra time. Took an extra minute or two for her to get everything lined up perfectly. But what I found is that when you do that, God has a way of adjusting time somehow. I don't know how he does it. That if you'll take the time to do things in a great way, it's like it opens up more time. I don't know how to explain it, but I've seen it to be true over and over again. That if you'll take that time to do things the right way, he has a way of expanding time for you where you can get more done than you thought you could get done. I don't know how he does it, but he does it.
Yeah. And, it's like the thing I want to caution against too is on your way to being great in that memorial portion, you're giving it to God without any expectation. You simply know who you're giving it to.
Mm-hmm.
And he's made comments about what he will do. We're just going to trust him for what that is. We're going to trust him for what that is. I'm not going to say, God, I'm going to give you this memorial portion, but I need this back. I'm struggling right now. No, I'm going to give this to you, and you know what my needs are better than I do.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would happen if you cherished your spouse? And this has been driving you crazy. It's like running fingernails on a chalkboard and it just irks you to no end that you've been complained about, and you're beat down. But what if you took a memorial portion? What if you took a moment to cherish and say, okay, I'm going to do this great with no expectations, and I'm going to love this person unconditionally the way God loves me in my sin and works me right out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
over time, this person's going to be watching. And over time, as you change and you keep adding greatness and greatness to your days, I think in a shorter period of time than longer, there's going to be real change. There's going to be real substance there and a
Mm-hmm.
foundation of new being built to move forward on.
Well, think about if your spouse or your kids they keep consistently see you showing up and doing things in a great way. What does that do for your relationship with them, for how they see you, for the standard they see you setting? Even in relationship, even just attraction, like to see somebody do things in a great way is attractive. And so I think it has way more impact than we think. Now, the other thing I'm thinking about that I've noticed from trying to implement this, usually for me to do things in a great way requires me to slow down. The biggest hindrance I had a lot of times for not doing things in a great way was going too fast, trying to just get things done, of slowing down and taking the time to do things well. Like for you to wash the dishes in an excellent way meant that you got to pay a little more attention. You got to be a little more present. You got to take your time to really do it right. Because some people just probably go in, give it a couple scrubs, and throw it in the stack over there. It takes some time to do it right, but that's where you got to trust that if I do it the right way, God has a way of opening up more time.
And see, Dan,
It,
I think you hit the nail on the head that this is a great way to get that toehold, to get that start. And
mm-hmm,
you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You just have to be present.
mm-hmm,
You have to look beyond hurt and pain or frustration and say, hey, do what I know to do today.
yep,
And then that builds, and whether it's with your spouse, your family, your work, your church, your guess what? You start building those pieces and these areas of your life.
mm-hmm,
Exactly what you're saying, Dan.
yep. So I think it requires you to slow down. I think it requires being more present because it's hard to really do things in a great way if you're not really focused. Requires you, for example, I'm going to do one really good lunge. Well, I got to be present in that. I can't just go through the motions. I got to be present in it. Same thing with your spouse. All right, I'm going to take the time to really look for some ways to make their day today. Well, that requires being present and looking for opportunities. Same thing with your kids. Same thing in, just about any area of life. I got to slow down. I got to get more present. I keep thinking of this quote from John Wooden, the basketball coach, where he would often tell his players, be quick, but don't hurry. Be quick, but don't hurry. So let's do it as quickly as possible and highly efficiently, but not in a hurry. Because when you're in a hurry, you're frantic, you're out of control, you've lost your peace. Do it with presence, do it with peace, do it with joy, do it connected to God.
Yeah.
It becomes an act of worship in a way.
And sometimes for those of you that may struggle with, I hear what you're saying. I'm just not quite sure how to get started. Well, here's a good one you can do with your wife. I've done this because I may be thinking with my man brain what my wife is expecting. And boy, we can sometimes be like this. So what I did was I go, hey, honey, I didn't want her top 20. I said, give me one, maybe two things that are near and dear to you right now. What would you like to see me do? What would you like to see me change? Just your top one or two. And then you'd be surprised. You might be kind of, whoa, I really wasn't expecting that. Or, wow, that's just what I needed to hear. But at the end of the day, can you take that one, maybe two items and start being great at it? And
Mm-hmm.
that's going to then uncover some more. and some more. Then, as Dan was alluding to just a minute ago, guess what? It's probably going to start becoming reciprocal
Yeah.
because you're raising your game. Guess what? You're not being a hindrance. You're not being a downer. You're not being negative, and you're not expecting anything. You're
Yeah.
doing this because you love them
Yeah.
unconditionally. There's no strings attached. It's because I cherish you that I'm going to start being great.
Hmm.
And I can't change myself all at once. But like eating an elephant, I can take one bite at a time. And what does that look like 6 months from now?
Well, and you might show up at the end of the day and you're like, you know, I had one moment today where I showed up in a great way. The rest of the day, maybe not so much. But then the next day, maybe you have two or three, and you
Mhm.
keep choosing that, and you start stringing these moments together to where it just becomes just your way of being, just how you do things. And that's our goal, I believe, is you start stringing together these moments.
And
And
you'll find out the mistakes 6 months from now look a lot different than they do now
yeah,
because they're not as frequent, if hardly ever. You've been doing things with intention. You're going to find there's more grace coming your way than ever before.
yeah. Well, Kelvin, this has been encouraging.
I
This has
needed to
been,
hear what we had to say today, too. I
yeah,
really did.
yeah. Me
You
too.
know, I felt
Me
like the
too.
coaching went both ways,
Yeah, yeah. This has been
like iron
encouraging.
sharpening iron. A knife can cut both ways. I'm like, whew, God pricked my heart very well today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've got a brand new program called the New You, and I think it's, how do you show up as the new you? I think part of the new you is what we talked about today, showing up in a great way. And I think our program, the new you, it could just be a tremendous blessing for you. If you go through it, you can find more information at abundantlifetrainingcenter.com. It's a 40-day program that I think is just